Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk everything to do with my Korean bootcamp. I'm going to talk about my peak ranks, some of the notable players I played against, also talk about just things that make the server different in general, maybe some of the stuff that I would do if I came to Korea again, and also my plans for what comes after Korea. So I'll make sure to timestamp everything in the description below, and so feel free to skip around. I will start things off by talking about my peak rank. So the big question you guys might have is, did I get Challenger? And the answer is no. I got very close. So my peak rank was actually 1019 LPGM. At the time of getting this, Challenger was around 1073 or, 1085, somewhere in that range. Was Chal, so it's about 3 games away, but this was my peak. I did get over 1k LP a couple times. I'd kind of like go up and I'd fall down a bit and I'd go up again. So I did kind of hover in this like 980 to 1k LP range for a bit. But that's still, again, like 3 to 5 games off of Chal. So yeah, I was close, but I didn't quite get it. Obviously, if you go to Korea earlier, when the LP cutoff is lower, it is easier, right? Like you can get Challenger when it's like 600 LP or something. But personally, I would not say that counts. And maybe it's a bit of a elitist take, but personally, I don't really count Challenger unless it's above 1k LP. On major servers, that is. Obviously, it's a bit different on the smaller ones, but yeah, so I wouldn't have really been happy if I was like an 800 LP Challenger. So I guess I'm still happy with being 1k LP, but there's definitely things that I would have done differently, and I'll talk about that later in the video. Some other questions you guys might have is, what notable pro players did you play against? So I played against a lot. My most fond memory of Korea is I played against Rookie. So I played against the guy that I've learned literally everything from, and it was a Nazir versus Lucian matchup, and I do have the replay, and I might go over it on stream at some point, and I'm sure I'll post it to YouTube or whatever. But yeah, that was quite the experience. A lot of people have asked me, have I felt starstruck in Korea, like playing against anyone? And honestly, not really. Most people I've played against has just been, I feel like I'm just playing League against someone who's pretty good. But against Rookie, I was pretty nervous. I definitely did not play that game very well. And I was, I kind of went into the game thinking like, win or lose, I'm going to be really happy with the game. Just having played against like this guy has been my idol for so long, I was super happy with it. Unfortunately, I did lose. I mean, like I said, I did not play very well. But I did do more damage than him, is all I'm going to say. And again, maybe I'll review that video at some time. Who else did I play against? I played against Scout. I played in a Zia versus Zeri game against Scout, and I did win that, actually. I went like 6-0-10. I actually think I played quite well that game. I played against Angel, who was the Suning mid in the 2021 Grand Final. That was LeBlanc versus Lucian. I think I also played very well in this game. I played against Faker 3 times, but I didn't actually play against him in mid. So I played mid once when Faker was jungle in the enemy team, and then I played support twice against Faker mid on the enemy team. And I'm currently 2-1. So, winning record against Faker, that's all I'm going to say. I did play against Chovy once as well. Chovy was mid on the enemy team. I was AD carry. So, unfortunately, I did not get to play mid against Faker or Chovy, which is a bit of a disappointment. Who else did I play against? I played against a lot of Academy mids and some other random LPL mids. I also played against quite a lot of just high LP mids in general. I remember I played against just like random 1400 LP, 1500 LP mids. And yeah, the gap wasn't actually big. Actually, I thought, some of them that I was better than. So again, I'll talk a lot more about this later in the video when I talk about what I would have done differently. But it was quite, despite not reaching Challenger, I was actually quite, I think I got a lot of confidence in a way. Like I was pretty happy with how I played against some of these like really, really good players. Yeah, so in that sense, I was super, super happy, at least with my laning phase. I think my laning phase was definitely up to Korean standards, which I was quite happy with. Notable players from other roles. I mean, yeah, there was just, I had like Viper as my AD carry once. I played against Deft a couple times. I played against LNG's top laner, Zika, I think he is. I played Cassio versus Aurora top, and he was 1500 LP at the time. This is when Aurora had just come out, and he was clearly learning the champ because I solo killed him 3 times. So that felt pretty good. Yeah, I think that was about the end of the notable players I played against. I'm sure they were just like, around the place. And what you can do is if you want to go to my deeplol, and I'll link this in the description below, where it says P here, that stands for pro. So recently my LP, as you can see here, has fallen a lot. But if you scroll down, you will see some of the pro players I played against. If you scroll back to especially like around 2 weeks or so ago, when I was still in these like quite high elo games, I was thinking, yeah, like 980 here, 928 here. There were a lot of pros in these games, so if you want to scroll for yourself, feel free to do so. Real quick, I want to talk about these server comparisons, because people always ask me, how do you find Korea to other servers? So I have played on OC, obviously, where I'm from. I've played on Korea multiple times. This is my 3rd time in Korea. I've played on NA and I've played on EU. So I haven't played EU since the very start of 2020, and I haven't played NA since 2019. I got rank 13 on NA in 2019. I honestly thought NA was just OCE, but with like 4 players. I'd give OCE solo queue like a 3 out of 10. NA solo queue is probably like a 4 out of 10. From what I remember of EU, I would have given it a 6 out of 10. But I am actually going to EU after Korea, so I'll get to kind of check that again. And also, I didn't get to play in EU very long. So that's like that's like the rating I'm least confident in, but I gave it like a 6 out of 10. And then for me, Korea is like an 8 out of 10. I do think it's a harder server. They play more meta champs. They're much better in laning phase. They're more aggressive in the early game. Everyone being low ping actually makes a very big difference, because it means that, especially in mid lane when there's a lot of skill shots, the matchups can be very different. You know, if you play something like a very heavy skill shot champion like Syndra, and you're playing on low ping, like let's say you're playing Syndra on 5 ping and your opponent's playing on 40, honestly, that's fucking broken. Like, I'm telling you guys, if you play on a server that's like more spread out, like EU or NA, and you play a skill shot champ, it's going to be very hard for your opponents to play against them. I think playing against a champ like Syndra on 70 ping or 60 ping or whatever is basically impossible, compared to if you play against a Syndra on 5 ping. I actually felt like Syndra was super easy to beat on Korea, because yeah, I have like 4 ping when I play, and that makes a really big difference. So yeah, for those reasons, I found Korea to be much stronger, which is like no surprise. I think most people generally consider Korea to be one of the hardest servers. I've never played in the super servers, so I can't really give you my opinions on that. And I know a lot of people consider EU to be a stronger server than Korea for kind of like different reasons. Like the macro is often cited as being better. Again, I don't really know this for sure, because I didn't get a super good opportunity to play on EU before, but I'll give you guys an update when I end up going in future. So the big question I guess you guys might have is what I would do differently next time, and or like what held me back, I suppose. Now, I think by far the biggest thing was champion pool, for multiple reasons. So the first thing, and I'll actually show you guys this, is that there's kind of like a format a lot of the time that Korean solo queue follows in drafting. And what that is that, and you guys probably have this in your solo queue games as well, is most of the time, the top laner will last pick, right, on red side. Which means if you're playing red side as a mid laner, you're kind of expected to blind pick. And so there are multiple ways to blind pick. You know, I've made a blind pick tier list. You can either play the very strong meta champs. So for example, right now it'd be something like Zeri. Now this is something that I struggle with, because something that is happens, I guess, in Korea that doesn't happen in other servers, is I couldn't have more than one account. So like for me, I don't like to practice new champs on my main account, right? Because I don't want to just queue up and like feed a lot and lose a lot of LP. But honestly, I probably should have, because I didn't know how to play a champ like Zeri before I came to Korea, and I still don't, right? Like I didn't invest time into playing it. But if you're unable to play what is like the strongest mid meta blind pick, it's gonna make this position very hard, because most likely on blue side you will get counter, right? Because the mid laner will pick here, and so if you don't play the meta, that's not too bad, because you can counter pick. But if this like red 4 spot here is very, very difficult, because if you're blinding mid, they're picking mid top, you're gonna have a losing matchup. And so yeah, I guess like the TLDR of that, before I get a bit more in depth into this, is I struggled to play some of the meta champs because the meta was very different, right? Like I'm sure you guys have seen, it's very like 80 carry heavy meta. Now like lots of bruises are starting to come in, right? You're seeing like mid Garen, mid Nasus, and I struggled to adapt to that. Because I didn't have an account to practice things on. I only have this one Korean account, and something that I'm really looking forward to about going to EU next is that I will have 2 accounts. I'll be able to practice some of those meta champs on a second account before I bring them out on my main. Potentially, I should have just sent it. I should have just locked in Zeri and lost like 300 or 400 LP for the like long-term return of getting Challenger. I think that probably was worth. In the moment, though, I felt like, oh, okay, it's probably better just to stick to my comfort and try to get Shao that way. Obviously, it didn't end up working, but hindsight, of course. But there is another way to pick your mid on this spot, which is to pick a flex pick. And I think that's something that you're seeing a lot in mid lane right now, is just seeing these champs like Garen and Nasus. And I think there are others. There are actually many top laners that can be picked here that are really valuable. So Kennen and Rumble just got nerfed, but I think Kennen's a really good example, and I actually think Kennen is still good. So something you can do is, if you can play Kennen mid, right, you can pick Kennen here on that like red 4th pick. And again, like most of the time in Korean solo queue, it'll be like you know, the other roles like AD mid and support, or sorry, AD jungle and support, will kind of pick in each first three, and then the solo laners get down to this. So the really nice thing about Kennen is that the response to it, a lot of the time, can be quite punished, right? For example, if the enemy top picks something like Aurelia, thinking it's Kennen top, right? And then the enemy mid is like, oh, I'm blind picking, I better pick something safe like Ahri. What you end up with is you actually probably have like a pretty good mid matchup because they picked something that was quite safe, something that can't punish you if you're blind. And then your top laner gets to pick something like Renekton or Jax that does really well into Aurelia. And this is really, really valuable, I think. I think being able to get multiple winning lanes for your team, in solo queue specifically, I think it's different in competitive, but I think in solo queue specifically, being able to flex pick as a mid laner here is very, very valuable. And I think there's a lot of champs that work really well here. So like I think mid Cassante is good. I honestly think Aatrox is good. I mentioned Kennen Rumble. You can play something like Aurora that's a double flex is still not bad, right? Because then at least they don't know which way it's going. But I think it's even better if you can play something that like baits them into picking something, you know, again, that counters it in that lane. So I think having a flex pick is really, really OP. And I didn't really play many flex picks. I think really the only one that flexes mid and top in my pool that you would like expect like realistically to go top at the moment is probably Jace. And I think the problem with Jace is that he's just like not particularly good against like a lot of them like safe meta blinds anyway. So you don't see Jace mid played very often right now. But yeah, I think that would have been really, really valuable. But failing that, obviously just playing the meta champs in general. You know, like I didn't play Zeri. I don't think I was... I actually think I was like pretty good at Tristan Corki, but like was I Korean challenger level? Like, no, I don't think so. And that's something that's like kind of important, right? Because there is a difference between being able to play a champ at like, well, let's say 500 LP compared to 750, compared to 1K, or even beyond that point, right? And something to think about is like, you know, you can kind of tell how confident you are in a champ by, you know, like, let's say that you had to load into the game knowing you're against like Faker or Chovy or whatever. Your list of champs that you would feel comfortable playing against someone of that caliber is probably going to be fairly short. You know, for me, I mean, I'm not sure what it'd be off the top of my head, but I'm guessing it's like between like 5 and 8, right? But like you want it to be that every champ that you are willing to pick, you wouldn't be afraid to verse Chovy. And you know what I mean? Like obviously Chovy is like really good. Like you might just be afraid to verse him anyway. But what I'm trying to get at is that there is comfort level that goes really high. And like anyone, or not anyone, but like if you're a 1K LP player, chances are you can play like pretty much whatever at like 250 LP master, right? But as you get closer and closer to your skill level, the champs that you are able to play at that level get fewer and fewer. And I think I did not have enough champions that I was able to play at a super high level, or rather I had a lot of champs, but not a lot of variety, right? Like I had a lot of control mages, but I didn't, for example, have like an 80 champ with mobility. Like I did not play a Zed or a Cassante or something that could really deal with, like, what if I needed an AD mid, but I also needed safety? And again, that's when you're looking at like a tank, like a Zed, a Cassante, or a Garen, or an Aatrox, or something that could survive that, right? So I had kind of like holes in my champ in that sense. Also, something I think is more important in Korea than other servers is the side lane. So the side lane in Korea is really important because it is much harder to just like smash people in the early game. And even when you do smash them in the early game, Korea is, I would say, in many ways bad macro-wise. Like they are not good, for example, at choosing when to fight. Like they will just fight all the time, even if they shouldn't. And so, but what they are good at, what their macro is really good at, is they're very good at punishing the side lane. Or if you're like, so if you're like behind, you will get dived on side lane. If you're weak side, you will get killed on side lane, etc. And so being strong on the side lane, having not just like the winning mid matchup, but also the winning side lane matchup is very, very critical. So, for example, if you play a matchup like Hui versus Zed, right? Hui is quite good against Zed in the lane, but unless you get monstrously far ahead, which I think is kind of unrealistic most of the time, you would kind of lose the side unless you like really invested into defensive items. Like, for example, if you have to itemize Seraphs and Zhonya to beat Zed on side, that is probably correct, but you're losing out on so much damage that it's like, is this even worth it anymore? Even though, again, Hui is quite good against Zed in lane, is it really worth it? I don't really think so. And so, again, a lot of my picks were quite good in lane, right? Like a lot of mages in general are very strong in the 1v1. but they're not that strong in the side lane. And I think that, honestly, you see this just like more, you know, like you see like the bruisers and the AD carries invading mid, and part of that is because of stuff like Fleet and Absorb Life, and those are getting nerfed. But I actually think in many ways, like, this might be kind of overdue. I think that, like, top laners probably are a lot better mid than people think they are, because the ability to win lane and then win side against a mage is really, really valuable. And I think that mages in general, their laning phases, and again, this is kind of due to how OP Sustain is at the moment, don't win lane as hard as they used to, and so they don't get that lead to where they will just crush you on side lane. So I think that for me, kind of when I'm talking about coming to Korea next, I would really like to invest a lot of time into like really having a solid off role rather than just playing like Cassio bot or Cassio top or whatever. I'd really like to probably invest into learning top, or maybe invest into learning AD carry, and then have that champ pool also be able to play mid. And I think it is more valuable to learn top because, again, the flex pick potential, and because I think that, you know, if you're counter picking, you know, I talked about how all the ways to blind pick, right? Like having this red side fourth pick as a flex pick, like that's, or as a meta pick, that's how you strengthen this blind, right? But you also want to strengthen this counter. If you do see the enemy mid pick here, you know, whatever it is, you want to pick the absolute most unplayable matchup here. You want to pick something that is going to win lane and win side, and ideally, you know, like outscale and is good on their team. Now, a champ that does all four of those things is probably unrealistic, but, you know, the point is that you're really trying to super hard counter this pick here. And I think that there were certain champs that when my opponent picked, I felt like it was very easy to play against. For example, when I played against people playing Zeri, I would play Azir most of the time, and I actually had a really good win rate on it, and I can show you guys that in a sec. Whereas there were certain champs that were picked here, again, Zed being an example, where I didn't have something, unless like LeBlanc, but LeBlanc was banned a lot, I didn't have something that could just like really crush this pick. So I think the TLDR of all this is I think that I lost a lot of games in Champ Select, or at least I had lower impact in Champ Select than I should have, and it could be easily remedied through picks. And again, something I kind of said at the start of this video was that I really didn't feel outclassed individually when I played against people that were like, again, like 1500 LP, 1400 LP. In fact, there were many times where I solo killed them or one lane against them. And actually, like, a lot of those games I had good matchups, right? But I also felt that like a lot of the time I was really kind of like I was really, you know, fighting an uphill battle where my matchup, I had to play much better than my opponent in order to make this work, or I had to just kind of overcome the fact that my champ was like a little weaker than theirs. So I would cite Champ Select as the main reason that I did not get higher in Korea. And also, I think I have a very good idea of how to improve that. And honestly, I'm like really excited for that because like it's been a while since I've really had like not like a concrete goal in terms of like, you know, I wanted to get Korean Shell or whatever, but concrete like improvement goals of like what I should really improve on beyond just like minute things of, oh, you know, I can side lane a bit better, I can obviously get more CS, etc. Just like really define things to work on. And I'm really happy about that. So yeah, that was probably like a huge gap session, and I don't know if that made any sense at the end, but that's kind of my raw thoughts on it. Again, I don't use the script or anything for these videos, so I was probably long-winded. One other thing that I think I kind of have to solve is there's a very big difference between me playing on stream and off stream. So I kind of came back to streaming recently, and my LP nosedived for it. So I would say that off stream, my level was around like the 900 to, yeah, back here, around the 900 to 1k LP range pretty consistently. Whereas when I was playing on stream, as opposed to off stream, I kind of sit in this range here of like the 7 to 800. So that's like a good like 200 LP lower. Good, yeah, you know, 200 to 300 LP lower, which is quite a bit, you know, and I think that is somewhat natural. You know, like if you guys have ever watched my stream, I talk to people a lot, right? Like I reply to pretty much everything, and you know, even just like a moment of looking away from the game, or like one missed opportunity, one extra death or whatever, it can make a big difference, right? And so there could be a couple solutions to that. I mean, I could do no mic, no cam streams. I've never really been a fan of those, but honestly, it was probably better than what I did, which is I just didn't stream for 2 weeks, and I got very close to chow off it. But ultimately, it kind of felt like, in some sense, I like wasted a bit of my career trip, because ultimately, like, I am a content creator, and I spent 2 weeks making no content, right? So that would be you know, next time I'd really try and solve that. And in general, I don't think I made enough content this time. I was pretty lazy, I guess, about the videos and stuff, but there are some good content plans coming soon, so I'll talk about that at the end of the video. Is there anything else I would do differently next time? Not really. I mean, ideally, I would go with other people instead of just myself. I think it is a bit easier to do it as a group, as opposed to kind of the isolation of being alone. I don't think that was like too bad for me. Like, I don't think as a person that I am like bad at dealing with that, but I still think it would be not only more fun, but just like a bit easier to manage if I did go with other people. So hopefully, I do plan on going to Korea next year, and hopefully I will be able to go with some other people. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. So I guess the last thing to talk about is what's next. So the first thing, and if you guys have been paying attention to my streams, you probably know this already. I will be flying to the UK on Friday. So that's a couple days for me. And I'll be making a lot of content in EU. And one of the big things I'm going to do in EU, other than like expanding my champ pool and, you know, doing all these things I've just talked about, is I'm going to have an account that I play on stream, and I'm going to have an account that I play purely off stream. I'm going to compare the elos at the end. I think that would be a really interesting thing, because obviously, you know, here I was playing on one account, and there's a lot of other factors that could go into, you know, how high elo it was. But I think it'd be really interesting to see, you know, how big really is the effect if I play like 2 or 3 focus games off stream a day, compared to, you know, where I'm killing like 8 or whatever games a day, just kind of like talking to stream. I'd be really interested to see the elo difference. Now, maybe this isn't going to be the best experiment, because I probably am going to learn at least some new champs on that other account. Maybe I need 3 accounts to make this a fair test. But that's something I just want to kind of do more out of curiosity than anything. Otherwise, there are some pretty big content plans. So I am going to create a second channel. Actually, I think my second channel has already been created. So it's going to be, well, I'll link it in the description below, but also it will be, I think, pinned on my main channel page. So Shok 2 is going to be where I'm going to post all the kind of like gameplay or stream highlight videos. So that's where you're going to see road to rank 1, unranked to master, all that kind of stuff. And my main channel is going to return to the more like fundamental long form content. So my plan at the moment, and you know, who knows if I'll stick to this, but my plan at the moment is to make 1 champ guide a week, 1 fundamental guide a week, and then kind of like 1 or 2 just other general like educational videos like tier lists, or, you know, just things that I find interesting. So yeah, this channel will probably be mainly longer form, but if you do want the gameplay, and I'll try to be more consistent with that, I highly recommend you sub to my second channel, Shok 2, which again will be linked in the description below. Other than that, I don't think, I'm just looking at my list, I don't think I have anything else really to say. I will try and make some content in EU, and I'll probably make another video like this at the very end of EU, talking about my comparison, especially between EU and Korea. Other than that, though, don't really have anything to say. Come check out my stream at twitch.tv/shoklol. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please let me know in the comments what you thought, and I'll see you next time.